loyal, friendly, devoted to family. She was a supporter for children, woman of integrity. What else can you say?
She took care of so many people for so many years. She was a school nurse. There's hardly anybody in Chehalis that doesn't know her.
She does not toot her own horn. She does not go around talking about what she does for other people or how she's involved in other people's lives. She's very humble, and she just does it quietly and behind the scenes.
Dependable and caring, and I don't know, she's my sister. I don't know, I guess a lot of good attributes.
Absolute integrity. I mean, anything Virginia says, I know is truth. It's absolute integrity, and I think a lot of wisdom.
If it wasn't for the sacrifices she made, I wouldn't have been able to have the life that I've had so far.
Okay, this is our bedroom up here. This is our living room, which you can see I had decorated for the holidays. Yeah, I do. I collect spoons, I collect Hummels. I have lots of hobbies. This is Jim's oldest little girl. This is Rob. My name is Virginia Lintott, and this is my life. I was born June 9th, 1932, at my grandmother's house in Seattle, Washington, out by Green Lake. I can trace my family as far back as two generations. My grandparents were Quessenberry and Walter and Laura Pendle. My grandpa worked at a feed store downtown in Seattle at Galbraith, down on the waterfront. The other side, my grandfather had gone to school to be a veterinarian, but he was really kind of a poor farmer. My mother's full name was Nancy Grace Quessenberry, and she was born in Seattle. She looked very much like me, except that she had dark hair. She was a small person. She tried to be happy most of the time, and was kind of quiet though. My father's name was Arthur Joel Pendle, and he was born in Grand Coulee, Washington, 1903. My father, I thought he was tall, but I imagine he was about 5'10" now when I look back, and he was really outgoing. Everybody that knew him really loved him, and he kind of reminds you of a little bandy rooster. When he was upset, he was upset. My father lived over at a place called Barrie, Washington, and my mother went over there to teach school, and so that's when they met. They met in November, and they were married in February. My parents were married in 1931. They were married in Ephrata, Washington. He was a little country fellow, and she was teaching school, and he heard they had a new teacher, so he went to meet her. My father grew up as one of 11, and they were very poor, and he was the next to the oldest, and they lived on practically nothing. And my mother grew up in the city of Seattle, and they grew up a little bit more affluent than my father. And my mother had gone to college, so At that time, that was quite good. When I was a child, my father milked cows, and then he went to work at a local mill in Preston, Washington. The mill's not there anymore. And then as I got older, he started doing cement work and became a mason for cement work. It was very good. Well, he used to take us fishing a lot when we were kids, and that was always a good family time. And now as we're grown up, we think we probably went fishing for the food. We thought we went fishing for the fun, but now we're sure that it was for food. My mother was a school teacher. During World War II, she taught school again because they were so short of teachers. And then she switched over to the library, and she was a library for Seattle King County Library. I have one brother. Jim has retired from Boeing, did very well. I have two sisters. Jean lives in Everett. She taught school and then she worked in a bank. And she has two children. Jim has two children. And Nancy, my younger sister, is back in Chicago, and she has 3 children, and she just lost her husband this year. So she's had kind of a rough year. My brother and I were always really close, and when my mom would talk about us, she would talk about Virginia and the girls. It was always the little girls. So we were kind of divided in some ways, but we're only 5 years apart from the oldest to the youngest, so we were together. When I was a child, I lived in Preston. I always lived in the same house till I went away to school. And when I was 9 years old, we added a bathroom onto our house, and then I got my own bedroom. But until that time, my sister and I shared.
She had a little round face, and she was blonde, and she was a very quiet child. I remember she would often spend a lot of time in her room, and I don't know if she read or what she did. We didn't have television, but she was more quiet than the rest of us.
My life as a teenager was good. I enjoyed high school. I loved turning out for sports in high school. My first job was, I used to babysit for the Fredines. They had 4 boys, and they were very generous. They used to give me $3 and $4 a night, and that was quite good money then. But my first paying job then was on a scooter. I was an ice cream deliverer in Bellevue and Snoqualmie area, 2 different years. So I sold ice cream, 10 cents for an ice cream sandwich. I first learned to drive when I was 11 years old because we lived on this little farm and my father raised hay and you have to harvest the hay. Well, if I would drive the truck, then Jim could help throw the hay. You had to pitch the hay and there wasn't any other way to get it in. So I learned to drive when I was 11. I started driving on the highway when I was 15. I got my license on my 16th birthday. Oh, I do like to read books. As a child, I liked to read Little Women and all those kind of books. I really did like to read. I still like to read. We listened to radios and we played games.
Jack Armstrong, the all-American boy.
Jack Armstrong, Jack Benny, Roy Rogers. I love Roy Rogers.
From Hollywood, Roy Rogers.
I thought he was so good. If there was a Roy Rogers movie, I wanted to be there. Whoa, because he fall in love with his leading lady, What's her name? Dale, yeah.
Song and story. Dale Evans, Gabby Hayes, and America's King of the...
When I look back now, I know that we didn't have anything. My father was milking cows for $1 a day, and then he didn't get paid for it, so he wasn't really. And my grandma, Quessenberry, I know, we used to go there every weekend almost to Seattle, which was, now it's not very far from Issaquah to Seattle, but then you had to drive around because the bridge wasn't there. And I know that she gave my mom money to buy groceries because we just didn't have enough. So when we would walk to school, we walked a mile to school. We really did, rain or shine. And we walked along a railroad track. And the railroad track would have trains going by, going to Seattle. And these people would ride the train, and then they would get off and they would come to the different houses. Not so much ours because we lived up on a hill, but they came to the houses around the school and around the church and things, and they would ask, and they would do chores.